Hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP. 93.3 FM. I said it wrong. I even have this in my notes. I'm sorry. We're supposed to say it new now. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. So I'm starting off on a bad note, but you're going to love this show because so much of this news directly affects your money. And, you just heard about the trade deal in the news there. Of course that affects your money. That's easily the most impactful headline today. And I mean for you personally, because think of how much stuff that you buy from China. Look at all the great cheap junk that you get at Dollar General and Walmart. Look at all the great cheap fashions that Miss Parker gets from, what's it called, Shein and Temu.
Hi, Miss Parker.
Well, some of that was at a risk of jumping up. Now it's not. Scott Bessent announced this morning, and then Donald Trump followed up with the little signing ceremony and a brief availability to the reporters. But I can sum it up. There's a new temporary deal on tariffs between China and the United States for 90 days, stipulating that the United States is going to cut down our tariffs against Chinese imports from 145% to 30%. And then in return, China is going to reduce its tariffs against U.S. imports from 125% to 10%. So we're actually getting a little bit better of a deal for maybe the next 90 days or until they announce the next step. However, that's not all of them. Tariffs against some Chinese imports are staying the same. So tariffs against cars, steel, aluminum, the big ones are going to remain in place. So with that, look at your markets. I checked my my IRA account. Just reached an all-time record. That's right. The Parker retirement account. Not only has it recovered everything it lost in the downturn since, I know, thank you. Hell of a do-it-yourself investor over here. Not only have I recovered everything that was lost since April 2nd, Liberation Day, I have now surpassed that. So this is the highest it's ever been. Thank you very much. If you would like some future tips on successful investing, we have Bill Dindy coming up in the next segment. Do not listen to me. I mean, partly it's not that I got lucky, but I had some money on the sidelines, so I dumped it in when there was the first big 10% drop. So I was almost guaranteed a win for whenever it recovered. So unless we were just going to stay in the dumps forever, this was an inevitability, which is why I didn't freak out, and you shouldn't have freaked out when the media was freaking out a month ago. Oh, we're taking the economy. It's all terrible. This is going to impact the poor and least among us the most. Oh, stop it. Because this is huge. You don't understand. Like, getting this trade deal resolved doesn't mean things are going to go back to normal. In fact, this may lead to a whole new era of businesses booming that were otherwise kind of capped out. Opening up China and India would be about 3 billion new potential customers for American businesses that are right now shut out of those markets. So just China, 1.4, 1.5, whatever they're at these days. So $1.5 billion. We have seen what being open to the entire globe has done for our tech companies. That's one of the reasons why our tech companies here in America were the first companies to be worth $1 trillion. And, it's started off with just one, and now it's like 5 of them. Now there's like Amazon, Google, I think Facebook and Tesla. They're all trillion dollar companies. But that's because it's almost infinitely scalable. When you start a Facebook, it is open to everyone in the globe that's already on the pre-existing internet. If you sell beef, if you sell cattle, if you're a cowboy here listening in North Texas, you've had a lot of these markets closed off to your cows. They don't want your steaks. If you're a farmer, they don't want your produce. India has like a ridiculous tariff on most American produce, like 900% or something ridiculous like that. Think about if they have now, it's not like they're going to get 3 billion new customers, but they'll get 3 billion people who will look at their products and decide whether or not they want to spend the money on that or whatever the alternatives are. And so it's 3 billion potential new customers, and 3 billion potential customers. That's 10 times the population of the United States. Now I'm rounding it, so this is very rough math. But for all of these companies that deal with something tangible, not just an electron going through a copper wire or fiber optic wire, but people who actually make stuff and sell stuff, or they make food and they make animals, this could be huge for them. Like, they couldn't just double in size. They could be 10 times their size as soon as this all shakes itself out over the next 5 to 10 years. And the prescription drug order that you heard in the news here, this is essentially a trade deal too. This is the Donald Trump signed an executive order today, giving drug companies 30 days. Whatever you're charging other countries, you have to charge us. No more of this, hey, you can go down to Mexico and get the exact same thing for 1/10 the price. Or you can go to UK and you can find this for 1/10 of the price, or Canada for 1/10 of the price. Because this is essentially a trade deal. Because if you're a free market capitalist of any sort, of any variety, and you see drugs being sold cheaper in some other country, you know the obvious solution is, well, why don't you just go to Mexico, grab a whole bunch, and come back here and sell them for cheaper, undercut the people that are selling them here. But you can't do that. Why? Trade restrictions. So this is, not a healthcare bill. This is an economics bill. This is the same thing that I think confused a lot of people about the Obamacare situation. That was not a healthcare bill. That was an economics bill. It didn't have anything about a Band-Aid or Erlenmeyer flask or a Bunsen burner or a lab coat in there. This was all about who's going to pay for it once it's already done. Is it going to be covered by the government? Is it going to be covered by private insurance? Is it going to be covered out of your pocket? Or is it going to be covered by magic fairy dust that ends up in deficit spending? So what we have here is just those two headlines actually are going to affect pretty much everybody listening to the show today. The China trade deal, absolutely affecting you. The prescription drug deal, well, if you're on prescription drugs and this is something that could be found cheaper overseas, this is going to change your life. And you think about most of the people on prescription drugs are people who are older, people who are in retirement on fixed incomes, and they have no wiggle room. They're not getting a raise. They can't go out and make extra money. They can't get a side job. And to lower their prescription drugs, even just by a few percent, would be a game changer. I mean, and I say game changer not lightly. Like, it instantly raises your standard of living above what it otherwise would have been. So these are two amazing headlines. And I'm going to get some help breaking this down on how this will affect your pocketbook coming up next. We have financial advisor Bill Dendy of Alicorn next to talk about the China trade deal, the raging stock market, prescription drug executive orders. This is all affecting your money. Find out how next on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, the top news story is all economics. The China trade deal, there's a 90-day new paradigm where we have 30% tariffs on their products. They have 10% tariffs on our products, with a few exceptions. Steel, aluminum, cars are still at their sky-high levels. But the financial reaction to this is fantastic. You have the Dow, it's up. Look, the Dow's up 1,000 points today. That sounds like a lot. It's 2.5%. S&P's up 3%. It's a lot for one day, I guess. But it's not the NASDAQ's up 4%. But it's not like a skyrocketing rocket ship to the moon. This has been a steady 3 weeks of just incremental gains. And we're getting a little leap instead of the incremental gain today. And the leap so far, we'll find out in about an hour if the market closes above where it closed on April 1st before all this tariff liberation day stuff started. Right now, it's above. We will have recovered it all. And I want you to ask yourself, have you been hearing the same amount of headlines on the way up that you did on the way down? You have on WBAP? What about on these other platforms? What about on, some of the regular channels that you're skeptical of? You think CNN is going to spend nearly as much time touting the fact that we've recovered everything in the stock market as they did when it went down 10 to 20%? Of course not. But Donald Trump giving some statements on the new situation going on today. I have a new term I just learned from him. I mean, it's not like the technical term or an official term, but he calls it the fat shot. Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, all these semaglutides or GLP-1s, or man, we're all just amateur pharmacists at this point. He called it the fat shot. And I love that so much. I'm going to start calling it the fat shot. Can I call it the fat shot? Am I allowed to call it the fat shot since I'm not fat? You know how you can't make fun of women unless you're a woman, or you can't make fun of people of color unless you're a person of color. Can I, as a person who is not a person of size, can I call it the fat shot without getting in trouble? Because Trump did. And I thought it was hilarious. But he's telling a very important story in the middle of this. I divided it into two clips here. But this is a perfect example of what we're talking about.
I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight. And he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up. And he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? He said, so I checked. And it's the same box, made in the same plant, by the same company. It's the identical pill that I buy in New York. And here I'm paying $88 in London. In New York, I'm paying $1,300. Now, this is a great businessman, but he's not familiar with this crazy situation that we have.
So that's a fantastic example, but we've also heard others. Insulin in Canada is only like $12 a dose, and here it's like $150 for a month's supply. And they aren't exact numbers, but you heard a lot of those stories about how the exact same drugs sold somewhere else are a lot cheaper, made by the same company and everything. Well, you and I could figure out that if this happened in a vacuum, then you could just get on your phone and order your drugs from the UK. Get your fat shot from London instead of down the street at Walgreens. But you can't do that. So the president signed an executive order today telling the drug companies, you've got, what was it, 30 days to figure out how you're going to do this, but we're not going to pay more than other countries pay. I don't know if you're going to lower our price or raise their price, but you got 30 days to figure it out. So much of this affects the people that are listening right now. If not you, just give me a little grace to harp on this, because this is huge. And this is huge for people who could use the help the most. These are the people who are the least flexible. You know, if you are being drowned by prescription drug costs, I'm going to go ahead and assume you have some health problems. And so we have the people who aren't healthy, who aren't the strapping young bucks who can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Most of these people are retired on a fixed income. And so you have the double whammy of maybe things are going to be cheaper from China or remain about the same. At least they're not going to go up. But if your drug costs are going to go down, we are raising the standard of living. If we can get these drug costs down, we are raising the standard of living for the unhealthy and for the elderly. And that's a fantastic thing. And it was just all with economic policy. We didn't have to go mix any chemicals together and come up with a new drug or do any research. This is all economics. This is why we focus so much on economics on the James Show. This is the news that affects you and just hits you in the face, whether or not you pay attention to it. So I find that absolutely fantastic. So following up with that, Donald Trump, again, tried to ask the drug company about that, and he didn't like the answers he got.
I brought it up with the drug companies, represented by somebody who's very, very smart, good person too. And we argued about it for about half hour. And then finally he just said, because they can't justify it, he just said, look, you got me. You got me. I can no longer they've been justifying this crap for years. They said, oh, it's research and development. Well, I said, well, research and development, other countries should pay research and development too. It's for their benefit.
Hell yeah. And really, there's no acceptable excuse on why it's cheaper in other countries. You know, if you want to go to a store in Mexico and go to a pharmacy, there's all kinds of things that you can just buy over the counter that you can't buy over the counter here. That's one of the reasons it's cheaper. Because between you and the drug manufacturer, there's not a pharmacist or really a pharmacy benefit manager. And that is one of the crusades Mark Cuban is on that I agree with so much. And the fewer middlemen you have between you and where the drug is made, of course, the cheaper it's going to be, the more accessible it's going to be. You don't have to go see a doctor and get a prescription. There's another cost. If you really wanted to make drugs cheaper, get rid of the whole prescription system, period, point blank, end of story. Oh, we can't do that. Why not? Other countries do it. They're fine. What, you have people under the bridge over here off Woodall Rogers that are ODing on antibiotics? No. So why are we adding all this cost? Is that good for you? It's good for the medical community. It's good for the doctors. It's good for the pharmacists. It's good for the pharmacy benefit managers. It's good for Big Pharma. It's good for these people who have a gigantic lobby. But it's not been good for you. Donald Trump may be doing something about that right now. The other big cost is FDA approval. It may cost you $100 million to develop a new drug and then $300 million to run it through FDA testing, where it's not like if the FDA didn't exist, you wouldn't test it, but you would probably do cheaper, more effective testing because you're still going to be held accountable with class action lawsuits if it hurts people anyway. So what's the point of the FDA? That's a different conversation for a different day, but today you're getting some real wins today. Don't expect for the media to backtrack and say, boy, we were so wrong about this tariff thing. We were so wrong about this prescription drug thing. Donald Trump really did a good thing. Now, he's not going to get glowing coverage. I don't know how awesome the news would have to be for their narrative to change just for one day. But, I mean, between what's going on just with the economic stuff, and then you have the peace deal with India and Pakistan, you have the last American hostage returned alive from Gaza. He scored a free presidential plane paid by some sheikh in Qatar. Russia and Ukraine had peace talks over the weekend. I mean, this guy really should be on the cusp of Nobel Peace Prize nominations, but I would be happy with the positive headline. Coming up, Bill Dindy, financial strategist from Alicorn Investing, is going to tell you more in detail about how the news of the day is going to affect your wallet next. The Trump executive orders, China trade deal, we'll cover it all. If you have some questions, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, homeowners. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. And we just got through this last round of storms. I think we're going to be clear for this week. So it's a good week to get your roof checked out. All you got to do is go to BlueRibbonDFW.com. I skipped the Blue Ribbon part. Schedule a time. They'll come out. It takes about an hour or so. And if they don't find anything wrong, you just get a lot of documentation and pictures, and you get to keep this as a baseline for if something does go wrong in the future. You can use that to get your insurance claim expedited. And if there's nothing wrong, it doesn't cost you anything. So really all it is a little bit of your time to make a phone call, to meet the inspector, to look at your roof, and that's about it. Now, if you do need a new roof, or if you do have some problems, we'll work about, can we just patch it up? How much to get just this little problem cost? Or if you need a whole new roof, tell them you heard it on the James Show. You get a free ridge vent ventilation upgrade. They'll also help you deal with that pain in the neck insurance company, because this is something they've done thousands of times, and I've only gotten a new roof once in my entire homeowning career. So if you want a family-owned local company that makes it as easy as possible, as fast as possible, with as little hassle as possible, with as much help as possible, go to blueribbondfw.com. blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker. You're listening to News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. And a lot of the headlines today, you're going to love it because it affects your money and in a good way. The interim tariff deal, you know how sometimes the Cowboys have an interim head coach. Well, we have a 90-day changing of the guard in our tariff regime in us versus China, where their imports come down to 30%, our imports into China go down to 10%. We'll try and work something out within the next 90 days, or else it skyrockets back. So that's good. The stuff at Walmart isn't going to get exponentially more expensive if this can work itself out. And then also, there's a lot of good news that you should feel about the prescription drug executive order that Trump announced this morning that may lower your prescription drug costs. So how do you take advantage of all this? Well, we have a local financial strategist from Alicorn Investing, Bill Dindy, back on the James Show. Welcome back, Bill.
And it is always a pleasure to be with you, especially on days like this where people are so excited to finally see that bounce up in this market, which has been acting almost schizophrenic since November, not knowing if we need to be higher or lower because we don't know what the future holds with threats of tariffs. And then you tariff us, we'll tariff you back, and we'll go up to the moon and basically embargo each other. The 30%, 10%, while that may have seemed really high 6 months ago, right now looks like a major win on Wall Street, and it allows businesses to go ahead and start getting those orders back in from China, and the market is loving it.
Well, Dow's up 1,000 points, which sounds like a lot, but 2.5% happens from time to time, even in intraday trading. However, I think the more important milestone is the markets have made up everything they've lost since April 1st, and Liberation Day, when the tariffs were announced, was April 2nd. So I guess, we're not quite back to record-breaking territory, but we're out of the hole.
And that's exactly the way Wall Street's starting to feel about it. Now, of course, they're going to start looking for that next rain cloud on the horizon, and don't start counting your dollars before you're cashed out, because the market can pull back just as quickly as it moved up. But today, the news is positive. The next 90 days, the hope is that things are worked out to be more permanent. China, being one of our largest trading partners, and all of us kind of addicted to the goodies that come out of China. It's like, I don't know, brothers disagreeing. You might think one is getting a more share than the other, and maybe you have to raise your voice, and sometimes maybe a shoving match, but you sure don't want to have an all-out brawl. You don't want to permanently damage those relationships that have to continue for the benefit of all involved. And I think that we saw that China did not want to back down. They were one of the last big players to go ahead and negotiate something that made more sense. And it sounds like both sides were ready to de-escalate the whole situation. And I think that de-escalation is positive for consumers. It's positive. Free trade economists like to see no tariffs at all. But this 30 and 10, it sure is good compared to where we were just a week ago.
Well, Bill Dindy, I remember having you on about a month ago, and you and I were cautioning against the people in the media who were saying, oh, your retirement's been wiped out and crushed and people are getting ruined all over the place. We're like, no, hang on, just give it a little time here. And it looks like we've sort of been proven right.
Oh, my gosh. You know it. And it does once again show that the consistent investor tends to come out the best. The person who was still making their contributions all through this turmoil was buying at lower levels. And I'm talking to folks who are up, 10% in the last couple of weeks. And I know that that's not that big of a deal. You don't get excited when you get a 10% discount at the store or when you get an extra 10%. But 10% on your money in a couple of weeks is pretty okay. It feels good. But again, keep that long-term perspective and make sure that you don't get greedy and allocate more than you should in markets that really are forever have been volatile. You're going to have that basic sense of volatility, and there are various types of investments that can reduce that volatility. And so it is very wise to make sure that you don't now in euphoria get overexposed and buy high and then when you get sad again, sell low.
Right. Well, Bill Dindy, financial strategist at Alicorn. Another thing we were talking about is if you are unhappy with the way your portfolio performed in April, you probably need to change the way you're invested because you're exposed to too much risk. If you can't handle this, or you weren't expecting this, or this caught you off guard, or this could ruin you, you shouldn't have had your money in those positions. Well, now that we're out of the hole, it's time to go ahead and make some of those moves. So for the people who didn't like what their portfolio did in April, what changes do they need to make now in May?
Well, I think you're exactly right. When we're in a storm, it's a bad time to jump out of the boat. At that time, you stay in the boat, you wait till you get back to the safe harbor. You don't have to go out that far again, or you don't have to take such weather risk in the future. But now that we're back in the harbor for some people, they feel like they've gotten a recovery. As we said a month ago, if you don't like a 10 to 15% drop, you're going to hate the real bear market when it comes in at 30 and 40% down. And those are going to happen. Over time, they always have. And so you need to be able to not get shaken out at the bottom. If you were tempted now, well, gosh, while we're back up, it's a great time to look at things like even the basics. My grandfather's favorite investment, the CD. He'd drive across town and get a higher CD rate. You don't have to get that conservative, but investment grade bonds now paying 5 to 5.5% again for 7 to 10 year bonds. And so there are things that will give you a rate of return that is a little higher than the inflation rate and not have the same volatility as the stock market. And if you don't have comfort in that area, it's a great time to talk to that certified financial planner or the CPA that's trained in this area. I will say that there are a lot of people offering financial advice, and you find some of them are network marketers and some are doing different things. So make sure you're dealing with someone who really understands investments when you talk investments, but it's a great time to go ahead and round out your portfolio and get some things that may not have the same risk characteristics as equity.
Gotcha. Hey, you're a fun guy to talk to, Bill Dindy, when we have positive news like this. Thanks for coming on.
God bless you. It's always a pleasure.
All right, that's Bill Dindy. He's a financial strategist with Alicorn Investing. You can find him here locally. Coming up next, the congressman who broke into the ICE prison, the detention facility in New Jersey on Friday. I want to make the case that they should be kicked out of Congress immediately. You agree? We'll talk about that next. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. It's The James Show. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. The question is, should the congressman who broke into the ICE prison in New Jersey on Friday, should they be kicked out of Congress? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I say not only yes, but immediately. Immediately. If you're not familiar with this story, 3 Democrat congressmen went down to the detention facility called Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey. And they went to the gate and they demanded to be let in. Hey, we're congressmen. We have a constitutionally mandated oversight function and we demand to be let in right now. And they said, well, we can schedule you a tour if you want. And they're like, nope, we want to be let in. And they're like, well, it's not really how it works. This is kind of a prison. We have rules. And so they waited until the next bus came in and they tried to rush the gate and some of them got in and the mayor of Newark got himself arrested, Ras Baraka. So we have another instance here where Democrat members of Congress are rushing to a prison in order to lobby on behalf of people who aren't even U.S. citizens. Hey, at least they didn't go to El Salvador this time. At least it was one in New Jersey. I mean, that was even worse. But these are 75% of the people in this detention facility have already been convicted of a crime or have pending criminal charges. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's just a bunch of criminals. You're going to advocate for non-American criminals. And what do you want? You want them to remain in America? That's your ultimate goal? If you trespassed in Delaney Hall, if you went to the nearest detention facility and snuck in through the gate, you think you'd get charges thrown at you? Do you think you might lose your job? Well, what did it happen to these people so far? Nothing but positive. Nothing but great. You know what? They were all 3 on CNN this weekend. They were on State of the Union on Sunday, telling their story and getting attention they wouldn't have otherwise gotten had they not gone down and advocated on behalf of illegal immigrant criminals, non-American criminals, if they hadn't broken trespassing laws, if they hadn't gotten to a scrum and made a scene. CNN would have ignored, they wouldn't have been on State of the Union. So now you know why these people do it. Because you may think, well, how do they actually care about criminals from other countries? They don't. But they do see this as a situation they can exploit to get media that they couldn't buy otherwise. There's no amount of money that McIver, Congressman McIver, I know it sounds like I'm saying MacGyver, but it's McIver. There's no other way she would have gotten on State of the Union. Even if she paid, even if she said, look, I'll give you $100,000. Just let me be your guest. No, this is the kind of promotion that makes you a forever incumbent. And this was really good for their career. But also, how does this compare to the January 6ers? Because Newark Mayor Ras Baraka's excuse is that, well, look, there was an open gate and I just walked through it. And, I'm a citizen and the mayor of Newark. And when they told me to leave, I left and they arrested me anyway. Yeah, that's what happened to most January 6ers. Not all of them. Some of them actually, I don't know, smeared feces or punched a cop or something. But for most of them, the ones we talked to on this show, Larry Brock up here in the North Texas, that's all he did. He walked through an open door, looked around, walked out. He got solitary. He got almost over a year in jail. And no one was concerned about his due process. No one was concerned about cruel and unusual solitary confinement. No one was concerned that he didn't get his full hearing or get his full complement of constitutional rights. No one was worried about, hey, don't you think it's a little excessive to keep a guy in solitary for almost a year just for walking through an open door and leaving on his own? No concern there. But they will have concern, not for you, the native-born American citizen who's been doing the right thing their entire life and paying their taxes, but for illegal immigrant, non-American criminals. They should all be fired immediately. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Paramount Pictures releases Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Every mission has led to this. Tom Cruise is Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, only in theaters and IMAX on May 23rd. I saw a rumor he's going to be visiting Dallas to sort of promote this, what may be the last Mission Impossible. But if you want a chance to win some passes to the advanced screening on May 21st, that's one of our contests. Text the word mission to 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Should the congressman go to jail? More on that next on the James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We're just talking about the 3 congressmen and the mayor of Newark that went to the ICE detention facility, Delaney Hall, in Newark on Friday. And the mayor of Newark got himself arrested. There are people calling for charges to be filed against the 2 congressmen who went through the gate. I don't think the Menendez kid did. And I call him a kid because his dad is Bob Menendez. He's Rob Menendez, which is Bob Menendez Jr., basically. But remember what happened to his dad? His dad got caught up in all kinds of corruption scandals and busted, and he had the gold bars, and it was a whole thing. So that guy seems to have just as bad judgment as his dad there. But from a PR standpoint, this is working out great, because the 3 congressmen that went down there, they all got invited to be on CNN this weekend. So, hey, mission accomplished. They didn't get anyone freed. They didn't, actually help the cause on the ground, but they helped themselves by getting some great promotion. And you know what? Good for them. It worked. But it's still going on today. If you were out there right now, if you just transported yourself from the Starship Enterprise and landed in Newark outside of this facility, right now, there's reports on Fox News that there are dozens of clergy members protesting outside today at the facility in Newark. And they're trying to block the gates. And they said they would continue to block the gates accessing the facility until they are arrested. So a little more detail on this. Fox News is reporting it's about 50 clergy members from a group called Faith in New Jersey and Faith in Action. Never heard of them, but well, whatever. They've linked arms outside the main gate. I guess that's where we saw the scrum happen on Friday. And they're chanting and singing songs. They also have several speakers who also said prayers for the inmates inside the facility. That's good. And condemn their detention. That's bad. But the clergy members say they've all volunteered to be arrested and that they're going to attempt to enter the ICE facility if given the opportunity. Really? So now we got preachers breaking the law like that? And it's not like a noble breaking of the law where when you tried to go to a church during the COVID lockdowns or when you were protesting against Democrat segregation in the 60s. No, these guys are protesting and volunteering to get themselves arrested on behalf of non-American criminal illegal immigrants. Hell of a pastor you got there. And here's a quick clip from McIvers. She was on CNN yesterday, and there's no remorse. There's no contrition. Of course, they're going to say that they were doing the right thing, and I guess they think that this is the bridge at Selma. I guess they think that this is their new civil rights crusade. The Bull Connors is going to hit them with water hoses or whatever. No, that's not going to happen. You guys aren't the next civil rights movement. You're actually lobbying on behalf of criminal non-Americans. But here she was yesterday on CNN.
Congresswoman McIver, I want to go back to some of the footage.
Doesn't it sound like she's saying MacGyver, like the TV show? Like she's about to fix something with paperclip and duct tape? I don't know. It cracks me up every time I hear it.
Congresswoman McIver, I want to go back
MacGyver.
to some of the footage. We were looking at some, and I want our viewers to see that you are the woman in the red blazer as we show them. The DHS says that obviously that there were chaos, that maybe you were trespassing. You can talk about that. But the DHS also says that, in their words, you were body slamming an ICE officer. Is that what we're looking at? Is that what happened?
Absolutely no. I mean, I honestly do not know how to body slam anyone. There's no video that supports me body slamming anyone. We, as Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman said, we were simply there to do our job. Therefore, oversight visit and what you're watching in a video, and we don't have all of the body cam, and we hope that all of the body cam is released. It was a very tense situation. It unfortunately did not have to be like that. They created that confrontation, they created that chaos, and then ultimately went to arrest the mayor of the largest city of New Jersey, who is my mayor and my constituent. And it was very difficult to watch that happen. But absolutely, I did not body slam anyone.
Pravda wouldn't have done it better. That was such absolute trash of a setup. What they did is they took the entirety of the storyline and they found the one time where one guy from DHS misspoke. No, it wasn't a body slam, but she was body checking people people, when you tuck your elbow into your ribs and then bump into someone with your shoulder. Oh, yeah. She was doing that over and over. So she didn't body slam anyone. No one thought that he really meant body slam. No one thinks a 70-something, or is she the 80-year-old? No. The Bonnie's the 80-year-old. So an elderly congresswoman can pick a human being up over her head like John Cena and just bam. Oh, yeah. That's what she was doing. No one thinks that. But she was physically trying to nudge her way through the ICE people, and it's on video camera. Go to jail. Or whatever the punishment is for misdemeanor trespassing. Get cuffs on you, go to court. Maybe the guy sentenced you to jail. You probably get deferred adjudication or parole or probation, or I don't know, because I never get arrested. But criminal charges, just like if you would walk through there, the same thing should happen to them. And on top of that, kick them right out of Congress. You can't just break into detention facilities in violation of the other federal agents that are standing in front of you, telling you, hey, we'll put you on a tour here, but we've got to set this up. We don't just let people walk in and start nosing around here. This is kind of a dangerous place. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, U.S. and China have agreed to slash tariffs for 90 days. Will this breakthrough last, and how will it affect your money? We'll talk about it with financial advisor Kathy DeWitt Dunn in 4 minutes on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. When I was asking what should we do with the congressman who tried to storm the ICE detention facility in New Jersey on Friday, I got a fun email, james@wbap.com, from a guy named Donnie, who said they should have cuffed them all and thrown them in gin pop with the rest of the inmates. That's the kind of feedback I'm looking for. All right, Donnie. All right, to make some more sense of all the financial news, there's a ton of financial headlines that I consider more important than other headlines because it actually affects your money. Kathy DeWitt Dunn is on the James Show yet again. Welcome back, Kathy, for a return visit to the James Show, because this is great circumstances to talk about finances. The market's up, trade deals are being worked out. Things are pretty positive today.
Wow, isn't it just great just to hear all the news and to wake up to see the Dow futures on the rise, and maybe we have a deal. I can't wait to see what happens.
Well, we look at the markets and they haven't closed yet, but it looks like they're going to close in territory that puts it above where they were on the close April 1st, which was the day before Liberation Day. So not only have we started digging ourselves out of the hole, we're out of the hole.
Yeah, and that's great news. I mean, if you take a look at the markets, probably they're going to close up to 3%, I think, on Monday. And I think everybody just has great optimism with the U.S.-China trade agreement. And boy, we needed to see some great news. And finally, it looks like we're going to have a deal. Markets like deals, and they like confidence.
Is there some concern about uncertainty? This is just a 90-day pause, and if they don't get things worked out, maybe the tariffs can come back and rock this market again.
Well, we're all concerned about that. But I will tell you something, James, if you have a plan in place for retirement, you shouldn't be looking at the markets every single day. However, with that being said, China needs this deal more than we do. If we take a look, I mean, China had $438 billion of imports into our country, and yet we only exported $143 billion. Who needs the deal more, us or them? So I think that we're on the road to recovery. We'll take a look at what happens with the future markets. We got 90 days to figure it out. And I think Trump is bringing back a little bit of the confidence in the market that maybe perhaps people weren't seeing. And then we take a look at what happened also today with the pharmaceutical industry. Markets like great news. They like headlines that really make people feel good about things.
Wouldn't that be bad news for the healthcare sector?
I think it would be, but I think the average consumer takes a look at it and says, you know what, that's going to be more money in my pocket. And we need to identify healthcare and the crisis that we have here in the United States and take a look at it. But any time the consumer sees some good news, it makes them feel good, right? Just like eggs. They came down a little bit, they're expected to go back up. If I go to the pharmacy and I'm not going to pay $800 for a drug, I'm going to pay $30, that makes me feel good. So we'll see what happens with the healthcare industry as a whole.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. There's more people that are buying prescription drugs than selling it, so lowering the cost would do more good than harm, kind of the converse here. But how do you think that's going to work out? Like, do you think the drug makers are going to lower the cost here or raise the cost in other countries? Like, I'm not sure if this is going to result in cheaper drugs.
Well, I mean, we, I guess, to be told here in the future, but if we take a look at, some of the things that I was reading today, that maybe in some countries it'll come up a little bit. Maybe there's going to be a happy medium, across the world. But I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to think that you can go to another country, get some drugs for $20, $30, and you come back to the U.S. and that prescription's $800. There's something that has to be done with that. And I think that you're going to see that the consumer really wants to hear how that's going to impact their bottom line. They're not looking at earnings on Wall Street. They're looking at their paycheck and they're looking at their checking account and looking at how much money they're paying out of pocket when Medicare doesn't cover something. So there is some good news. I mean, it can't be all great, right?
Right. But Kathy, let's talk about this other demographic. You mentioned that, if you have money saved for retirement, you shouldn't be watching the stock market. But those rules kind of change as you get really close to retirement or if you're kind of already retired. So what's different for them if they do need to worry about the convulsions of the stock market?
Well, first of all, for people that have a plan in place, you have to take a look at having income that can keep up with inflation. There's a lot of great plans out there and strategies. Make sure that you don't have as much money at risk as you get older, because it's not really the money that we make that it impacts our portfolio. It's how much money we lose. So we need to have our eyes on our portfolio, and we need to make sure asset allocation, that everything inside of our portfolio is doing what it's supposed to do so we can cover our expenses, because taxes and medical expenses are the two most expensive items that I see with people that come into my firm all the time. So we have to identify it. We have to plan for it. And you know what? We got to have income that's going to keep up with inflation.
Well, Kathy DeWitt, you have the show that airs twice. It's so good on the weekends here on WBAP. You're on Saturday twice. You're on at 11 a.m. and then again in the afternoon at 4. What y'all talk about last week?
Oh, we just talked about all the different options that are out there as far as people looking at guaranteed lifetime income. Because of the interest rate environment that we're in right now, we're really helping people put some plans in place where they don't have to worry about their income in the future. And then we also take a look at asset allocation. People definitely want to have exposure to the equity markets, but doing it safely. So what we like to say, if we have a plan, we don't have to worry about it. And we're going to have ups and downs in the markets. But if you have your foundational income plan in place, then we don't have to be worrying about everything that's happening on Wall Street and every breaking news report, and we can feel confident in knowing that we can go through our retirement years happy and spending time with our family. That's what's important.
I think you have to do some of the same tug of war I do, because in my audience, I have people out there who have a bunch of money saved and they're invested and they want interest rates to be high so they can get a big return. Then I also have listeners who are in a boatload of debt and they got a mortgage and credit cards and car notes. And so they kind of want interest rates to be lower so that, they can have some breathing room. And so I don't know which one to cheer for more.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that if you have a budget, you have a plan in place, and you have income coming in, and you're working with somebody that's on the same page with you, all of that isn't going to matter in the end, because it's planning and income. Because when you go into retirement, you can't show up to Capital One and have it refinanced. You've got to make sure that you've done all of your work on the front end to make sure you can have fun.
Well, it's a fun day to talk to a financial advisor. Thank you very much, Kathy DeWitt.
Thank you for having me again.
All right, you can catch DeWitt and Dunn Financial Hour, 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Sundays here on WBAP. All right, coming up next, I saw a claim in the news that police here in Dallas are ignoring missing black children cases because they're racist. You'll hear me decimate this ugly myth coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on said it wrong. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Deduct 1 point from me, Garrett. That's the second time I got it wrong today, so I lose a point. In 1 hour, we're going to be playing Dead or Alive for tickets to Main Street Fest in Grapevine with Neil McCoy. If you want to hang out and play with us, you get a chance to win. If not, come back and check it out on the podcast. Or if you're about to get out of your car because you're running errands or whatever, when you get back in the car, put it back on WBAP. I don't want you to miss it. It's great fun. But my next story here, I got this from WFAA, but my criticism isn't for WFAA at all. This is a reporter who's just repeating what she heard from the two people that she interviewed on a very, very touchy subject. I mean, kids, is there anything that's more near and dear and touchy than kids? And then you want to throw a racial angle in there, and emotions are flying high, and logic leaves the room, and it's exhausting because this isn't what's good for the kids. This isn't what's best for the kids. This may be what's best for your particular nonprofit or your narrative or whatever. But let me introduce you to this. The idea that policemen out there are less concerned about a child missing based on the color of their skin. What an evil, disgusting, ugly slander. Now, I'm not saying there's no such thing as a racist cop out there, but to say that that's the norm, that's the paradigm that the department goes on and everyone's okay with it, and it's not maybe just some rogue actor, but it is the common accepted culture of law enforcement in Dallas. What a huge, ridiculous slander. Anyway, WFAA, here's the first half of the report on kidnapping.
In 2023, the city of Dallas started adding the number of children who were recovered who were deemed to be at a higher risk of being trafficked to its human trafficking dashboard. And since then, of the 258 children who have been recovered, again, only children who have been labeled as high-risk victims, 180 of them had originally been labeled a runaway. That's just at about 70%, with the largest demographic of those children recovered being Black. In fact, in Traffic 911's 15-year history, a majority of the children they've served have either been Black or Hispanic, with the largest group at 41% being Black children, mostly Black girls.
Black and brown girls are consistently labeled runaway. In disproportionate numbers. And we've had parents tell us, if my daughter was white, she would have been classified as missing.
And do you agree with that when they say that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, cops. I'm sorry that you have to sit here and hear that and be accused of being a racist, being accused of being indifferent toward the suffering of a child just because they have a darker skin tone. I mean, what a huge insult. And how would that fly in Dallas? This is a majority minority city. We're not talking about all of North Texas. We're talking about Dallas specifically, and the numbers for Dallas and the Dallas Police Department. Dallas is 42% Hispanic, 23% Black. So there's 65% right off the top right there. It's only 28% white. How would we be the dominant culture in the police department? Our mayor's Black. How would we be the ones who can convince the other 65% of the city that this is the way we're going to operate? I mean, it's not even really possible, is it? But what an ugly slander. Why would you say that? You don't, look, the whole report is 5 minutes long. Never do they go in there and they explain the numbers or the proportionality. Well, the majority of the missing kids are Black or brown. Well, yeah, they're the majority of the kids in the city. Well, the majority of them are labeled runaways. Well, were they runaways or were they kidnapped? And the distinction here is important in enforcement circles, because if they ran away, then you don't get an Amber Alert. You don't get policemen searching for you. It's a lower priority issue, especially if you're a minor, but you're 17 and you ran away and no one snatched you. No one just grabbed you in Target and threw you in the back of their windowless van and drove off laughing over the horizon. No, that's the situation you're looking at. And they never do go spell back. No, but they actually weren't runaways. They actually were kidnapped. They never tell you that. They throw in race and they're like, that's what it is. That's why they're having more problems in that society. It's white people's fault. It's always somehow comes back to be, I guess, white people's fault for everything. But here's another chunk of that from the other activists. You heard the first one. This one's even worse, about kidnapping in Dallas.
Derica Wilson is a co-founder of the Black and Missing Foundation, a group that works to help spread awareness and support families of Black people who are missing.
Oh, did you hear that? She has an organization where they show a different level of interest in recovering missing children based solely on the color of their skin. Isn't that exactly what they accused the Dallas Police Department of? Oh, that's so weird. Because you just said that was a bad thing when you accused the Dallas cops of doing it. Oh, you only show interest in particular missing children if they're of a certain skin tone. Well, let's go ask this lady who only has interest in a certain set of missing children based strictly on their skin tone. And she's the moral arbiter, and she's exhibiting the same behavior you just condemned. Anyway, let's hear from her. Let's give her a fair shot.
Derica Wilson is a co-founder of the Black and Missing Foundation, a group that works to help spread awareness and support families of Black people who are missing.
They're not seeing our children as children. They're seeing our children as adults.
Both Wilson and Speed believe that systemic racism and implicit bias create a stigma that a Black girl who is missing is likely not in danger and shouldn't trigger an emergency response.
They're runaway, they're grown, they are doing their own thing. In this world we live in now, we cannot afford to assume anything's okay when a kid goes missing. I don't care where they go or how long they're gone.
The Black and Missing Foundation is well known for creating social media flyers and posting updates on cases.
Law enforcement, put that missing person on your website. That is the bare minimum that the agency can do.
See, and the problem here isn't just that they're slandering cops in a very ugly way and exploiting the racial divisions that stain the American history. They're doing something that isn't actually going to help the problem which they purport to be trying to solve. Is this going to reduce the number of runaways or children who are trafficked of a darker skin tone? Absolutely not. But they never go to the root cause. They never go to fixing the hole in the boat. They just want to try and bail water out faster, or really give you the bucket and make you bail it out faster. But we talked about this last week on the James Show, and the week before, and a month before that, and pretty much the entire time I've been on. If you want to find out where the runaways are coming from and why they're higher in some communities, look at the out-of-wedlock birth rate. Children that are raised by single mothers are 32 times more likely to run away from home. Is that brought up anywhere in this article? Anywhere in this report by either one of these activists? Absolutely not. Well, because their nonprofit and their paycheck isn't predicated on single motherhood being diminished and reduced as much as possible, even though it would get you a much better result. Does anybody really, I'm not even sure if they really think that. Do they really think cops are so racist that they're indifferent to the suffering of children just because their skin tone's a little bit darker? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. That's a level of evil that's just not even believable. I mean, that's like Jussie Smollett level of lies. Oh, they threw bleach on me. Sure they did. Coming up next, a new report shows renewed interest in manufacturing careers. You'll hear from Parker Shepard of the Heritage Foundation. Is this the beginning of a revival of American manufacturing? Sounds like it to me. 800-288-9227. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. You're listening to News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Welcome back to the big show. Well, I saw a report, and it's pretty optimistic here. It says there's a renewed interest in manufacturing careers. And look, if we can get the right trade deals worked out and a little bit of deregulation and just a couple of little tweaks here, we are not far off from having a revival in American manufacturing. Coming up next, Parker Shepard is joining us from the Heritage Foundation, American conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C. And they also produced the scariest manifesto in American political history called Project 2025. Oh, my God. Parker Shepard, welcome to the James Show.
James, thanks for having me.
So why are young people newly interested in manufacturing careers?
Well, because there's a potential good payday if they can get into the industry. The Wall Street Journal just last week ran an article where they were talking about high schoolers who have $70,000 a year job offers because it is difficult for firms in the industry to be able to find people with the right skills. And yet we've seen the exact opposite narrative get pushed from people in the commentary class. Everybody says that no, the interest is failing. Nobody wants to go work in factories.
These are jobs Americans don't want to do, kind of that attitude.
Exactly. And that's absolutely not borne out in the polling. There's a poll that went out recently that said, they asked people generally, do you think more people should work in manufacturing in the United States? And they said 80% of people said, yes, the country would be better off if that were the case. And then they asked, would you yourself be better off if you worked in a factory? And only 25% of people said so. And the take was, no, nobody's willing to put their money where their mouth is. They don't want to go work in a factory themselves, but they completely forgot to do the math. If you take 25% of everybody who's working that's outside of manufacturing, that's 37 million people who are interested in moving. And the industry already employs just about 13 million. So it's a huge amount of interest for an industry that people are trying to write off.
Oh, totally agree. Now, explain to me how a guy coming out of high school can have a better set of skills than someone who's gone through 4-6 years of college and packed out six figures of student debt.
Well, you have to look at what the trends in the manufacturing industry. And then, yes, employment has been declining in recent years, but the value of manufacturing output has been relatively constant, which means that the industry is getting more productive. And the key there is that means wages go up because employers are willing to pay the value of what you're able to produce. When you have the right set of skills to be able to walk into an advanced manufacturing facility and be able to use the latest technology, you are more productive, you create more output for your employer to sell, and that translates into higher wages.
So I have a son in high school, and if I wanted to steer him in that direction, what skills would I point him towards, Parker?
Welding is an interest. Robotics, electronics. We're moving into unlocking AI. And what's really interesting is that a lot of people are starting to get concerned about the possibility that AI comes for a lot of knowledge work. You look at people talking about ChatGPT, generative AI. It's doing things that are typically replacing white-collar jobs. It's going to be a lot harder for them to come for certain things that still require people to work with their hands, or you have to be able to manipulate something physically. Or maybe you get really good at programming a robot to be able to do something physically over and over again really quickly. There's a tremendous opportunity for being able to work in manipulating physical things, because for all the shifts in the industry that have moved away from manufacturing towards services, we're not going to get rid of manufacturing. We still need to make things in this country.
Absolutely. All right. Well, all positive stuff. Thank you very much. This is Parker Shepard from the Heritage Foundation. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, coming up next, we're going to go through some of the other headlines. We talked about the big ones already. I'll review those, but then there's like 6 sub-headlines, which kind of will leave you scratching your head thinking, well, what would Trump actually have to do to get positive coverage for just one day from some of these people who just seem dedicated on running him down every day? Because on a day like today, you just heard the conversation I had with the Heritage Foundation. There's a lot of good news out there. How could you be sour on Trump on a day like today? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. You're listening to News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. The question is, what would Trump have to do to get just one day of positive news coverage from MSNBC? I think they're the ones who are the most anti-Trump of the network. And I say that on a day when, if you just heard in the news update, we have a new trade deal with China. And even if this one is the one that sticks and after 90 days we don't get anything better than this, it's a 30% tariff on the products we sell in China on the products we import from China, and a 10% tariffs on the products we sell to China. And if those markets open up, that would be such an economic boon for us. Then you go to CNN, and we've got the closest thing that you could possibly get to a positive headline on CNN about Donald Trump. And that says how Trump managed to get a much needed China trade win. Oh, wow. Now, the rest of this is pretty bad. Like in the story over next to it where they talk about the final American held in captivity by Hamas in the Gaza Strip, he's reunited with his family. They don't give Trump credit for that. The headline says, Israeli-American hostage Adon Alexander returns to Israel after Hamas release. There you go. They don't give Trump credit for that. But look, there's half positive. But over here on MSNBC, I mean, they're like the Grinch at the very beginning of the movie there. They just have no heart. There's nothing that – I'm thinking that there's nothing this guy can do to get positive coverage. But on a day like today, well, what are they saying about the China trade deal? Let's see. Where is China trade deal? Over here on MSNBC.com. Their top story is Republicans face an impossible tax dilemma. Then Trump chimed in. House Republicans unveiled Medicaid cuts proposal. And Trump wants hardworking Americans to bankroll his tax cuts for the ultra wealthy. Did this come from your newsroom or from the Bernie Sanders press office? Because you can't tell the difference. If Bernie Sanders press office wrote all these headlines, they wouldn't change a word. So no, they didn't. Look, everything here is negative. Judge rules on Trump's blanket January 6th pardon. Trump is finally getting his parade, and it's only going to cost taxpayers tens of millions. Pool nominations, legal losses, and seeking poll numbers. Trump's failures are adding up. This is just a dedicated anti-Trump page. If Democrats.com wanted to just mirror this page, it would be totally, you wouldn't even tell. You couldn't even tell the difference if they took the logo off. So is it impossible? I'm trying to think of a scenario because like today is the most positive news I have ever seen in one day on WBAP doing the James Show. Because the trade deal with China, not only does it kind of absolve some of the worries and concerns and whatnot, but it happened, and it happened fairly fast. I mean, the guy's been in office for 4 months, not even 4 months yet. It's a big one. It caused the stock market to go back up. We're now above where we were when the trade tiff started. And so that's fantastic. It's on the same deal or same day where we have an announced peace deal with India and Pakistan. Now, Trump didn't go sit at a table and negotiate between the two guys, but we were a disinterested third party for once in an overseas conflict. And Pakistan and India both admitted, of the several nations that were in on the talks, America was an influence in that. I think one of the big ones is we have the last American hostage returned alive from Gaza after the October 7th terror attack. And Adon Alexander, we just got, since the James Show started, the video of him being reunited with his mom after 500 days in Hamas captivity. What a beautiful story. What a success story. We finally got all the Americans out after a year and a half of this. More than a year and a half. So what a great negotiation that just happened there. There's been an ongoing back and forth about Air Force One. And I think Air Force One is like a couple of planes. Isn't it like aren't there 2 or 3 Air Force Ones? But the planes that they've been using are like 40 years old, and they've had a deal with Boeing to make a new one that's sort of upgraded and has current technology and is a little more efficient. And they keep saying, well, we're going to be delayed or we need more money. And so who was that we had Qatar step up and say some sheikh over in the Arabian Peninsula offered to loan Trump or give Trump a luxury Boeing until the new ones from Boeing come out. That's fantastic. Saves you as the taxpayer $700-800 million. I don't know what it costs for a fleet of Air Force Ones. But also today, the prescription drug executive order, which I don't think it can make drug prices go up for us at all. It might make some drug prices go up for people overseas, but drug prices are probably going to be lower within 30 days unless something wild happens with that. And we had Russia, Ukraine at peace talks over the weekend as well. There's been an avalanche of good news. And you go to msnbc.com, they can't say one nice word about him in any headline. And give it up. Give it up for once. I'm so happy to actually clap for CNN. They have one somewhat positive headline about Trump. But I mean, people, if on a day like today, you can't be positive, you can't be uplifting, you can't say one nice thing about the guy, then you're just a hack. And so I was trying to think of a scenario. What could Trump do to actually get positive news from MSNBC? What if on the same day you had all this and you had the Epstein list released, the Diddy list, and then Trump started going to WNBA games and Broadway shows? Would that get him a positive headline? What if he came out on the South Lawn of the White House and he said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to burn a flag. And he set an American flag on fire. Would MSNBC love that? How on earth could they report on that? So like, oh, burning the flag is bad now, or Trump is evil because he's doing the thing that we always praise people for doing. What if he went to the Delaney Hall in New Jersey? What if Trump went there and broke in on behalf of some criminal illegal immigrants? Would he get positive coverage from MSNBC? What if he went there right now where you have these clergy members who are singing, trying to get the criminal illegal non-Americans released from the detention facility, not deported back to their own country, just released back into the polite society? Oh, that's enough of that. Well, yeah, what if Donald Trump was arm in arm in front of the gates at Delaney Hall singing those terrible songs with some hand drum? Is there anything this man could possibly do to get MSNBC to say one nice thing about him? Just anything. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I don't think you can think of one. Coming up next on The James Show, State Rep Brian Harrison from Midlothian sounding the alarm about the most disappointing Texas state legislative session in your entire life. It's coming up in 4 minutes on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Now, he's a good guest. I just hate all his segments. State Representative Brian Harrison back on the James Show yet again with more bad news on what is probably the most disappointing Texas legislative session of your lifetime. Welcome back, Brian.
Good afternoon, my friend James. Always great to be with you.
Can I start with, on a positive note, because I know it's going to go south pretty quick here, but Rep, you saw a pretty good band this weekend.
We did. The speaker tried to gavel us in unconstitutionally without a quorum. There were like 30 people on the floor. I said, guys, we took an oath to the Constitution. Let's make sure we got people on the floor. They went into absolute histrionics, tried to say that I was going to delay things and going to risk Republican priorities. They lost their minds because I said, guys, we got to have a quorum to conduct business. Well, after they spent an hour shrieking about that, as soon as we did have a quorum, what did they do? Did they start, passing bills to eliminate property tax? No. It was time for the mariachi band, and that is what we did on Saturday.
Well, I mean, okay, so the mariachi band was playing, but did y'all get any bills passed?
Probably nothing of any consequence, no real Republican priority bills.
Brian, look, it's just because someone's playing the trumpet and a big old fat bass guitar acoustically doesn't mean you can't lower property taxes. Do you lower property taxes?
You know what? If we would have passed a bill to lower property taxes, or even better, eliminate property taxes, I would have, a mariachi band playing all day, every day, 24/7. And look, I'm a musician. I love music. I like mariachi bands. But we got 4 days until the deadline to pass House bills off the floor of the House. So, A, members should be showing up to the work. B, our speaker shouldn't be trying to violate the Constitution again by pretending we have a quorum when we don't. And the last thing we should be doing is taking breaks to basically have fiestas on the floor of the House when we haven't done just about any major Republican priority bill this session. And it continues today. I just walked off the floor, brief break. There's debating going on, but we've got 4 days left till the deadline to pass House bills. And what does Speaker Burrows do? He clogs up our calendar today. I'm not making this number up. 142 Democrat bills is what he has slammed on the House floor for us to deal with today. We don't even have property tax bills, I don't even think, on the calendar this week.
Well, how many Republican bills are on the dock?
Well, so here's the question. He put over 400 bills total in a day. But I want you to stop and think about this. Here's the reality. No member of there's no human being that can fully comprehend the impact of 400 separate pieces of legislation being put on one calendar. And this is how and they know it. They know we're not going to get to these bills, but this is how they're gaslighting Texans after they've burned almost the whole session of doing nothing except for passing Zoroastrianism days, Beyonce resolutions, a Pakistan day. Now that we're at the end, he's got to look like we're busy. So he's putting over 400 bills on the calendar just about every day. No, there's no way we're going to get to these, but it's the way he kills Republican and the whole Austin Uniparty. They're going to kill all kinds of Republican priorities, but they don't want us to ever take a vote on it. So they put it on the last calendar, the last day, and then lo and behold, mark my words, we will run out of time before we get to just about all the major Republican priorities. And even the ones that we do pass, they're all gutted and watered down and fake. I mean, China land bill that isn't really going to do much of anything, a school choice bill that's only going to help 1% of Texas students, maybe. I mean, this is just pure gaslighting, and it's a betrayal of the voters of Texas that elected Trump by 14 points and want bold Republican leadership. And instead, we got Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi's team running the show down here in Austin.
All right, we're talking with State Rep Brian Harrison out of Midlothian about how disappointing the Texas legislative session has been. Now, I remember 2 years ago, I was working in a newsroom, and when the session was disappointing, we got a special session and then a special session and then like 5 special sessions, and we still didn't get it done. Are we going to go through that process again of special sessions with no result?
Well, I don't know yet. I mean, we'll know pretty soon, but I mean, the governor's got a big priority on Bail reform, it's a Republican priority. I don't even know that where that thing is in the House. I don't see it even set on a calendar, and that matters a lot to him, and he's the one who gets to decide if we have special sessions. But yeah, last session he called 4 special sessions, and we still couldn't get school choice done. We got school choice done this session, but I mean, it's weak and watered down, and that's just what we see is, and I'm going to make a prediction. I don't have a crystal ball, but the fake Rhino sellout leadership team in the Texas House, they will come up with a way to gaslight voters into telling them, guys, we passed, air quotes, we passed every Republican priority. But what they're not going to tell you is it's only after they've been completely gutted, they've been rendered completely useless, and they're probably going to even announce a, quote, bigger property tax relief package. But I'm telling you right now, unless something changes and changes drastically, everyone's property tax bills, or at least a lot of Texans or most Texans' property tax bills, forget going down, forget elimination. A lot of people's property tax bills are going to go up if we don't reverse course real fast. And we haven't even been allowed to debate. This is not a joke. We spent 3 hours on the floor just today, right before I came to you, debating what a woman is. But we haven't spent 3 minutes debating property tax elimination. That is how corrupt things have become in the Texas House.
All right, so worst Texas legislative session of your entire life. Here's the good news, State Rep Brian Harrison. Every time I mention the Rhino list, the list that we put together, and we have the map for it, it's on WBAP.com. People, whenever I mention it, I probably get about 24 emails. Send me the Rhino list. Send me the Rhino list. And if you haven't seen it yet, Brian gave me the list. We got another person to make the map, and I will send you a link to the list of all the Republicans who are voting with the Democrats here. What is it, 36 of them that have jumped ship on most of these issues?
Yeah, I mean, at least, and sadly, the number is getting a lot bigger. I mean, when I made a motion to vacate the chair and get rid of this liberal sellout Rhino, only one other Republican was willing to do it. So the list is growing, but the reality is at least 36 of them literally voted for the Democrat caucus candidate.
All right, we'll primary them out. We've got the list. If you want to see the list of people to primary out, put together by myself and Brian Harrison from Midlothian, send me an email, james@wbap.com, or find me on Facebook or whatever you do. Thank you very much, Brian. Coming up next, we're playing Dead or Alive. You want 2 tickets to Main Street Fest in Grapevine? It's coming up May 16th through 18th, headlined by Neil McCoy. Go ahead and call in now, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Now joined by the great Bob Lavelle. And listen, he's not just a sponsor. This is a guy I've been friends with for 23 years. And you know how many complaints I've got about from people who've worked with you, Bob? 0.
You know, it's funny. The Better Business Bureau says the same thing. And we've been in business now for right at 30 years, and we have had not one complaint. Now, guarantee you somebody's going to call in and complain and say, I was there, and they weren't. But that's okay. You got to pick up the phone and make the call before you even going to find out something to complain about, right?
Exactly. Hey, when I was buying my last house, my mortgage guy picked up a mistake my real estate agent had made, and that's what I get for not going with Bob, because I was in a different town. But mistakes do happen somewhere. Just I haven't heard about them with you, Bob. So if you want to get behind home marketing services, finally get out of the rent race, or maybe push your kid out of the nest and get him building some equity in his own house, 972-392-9595. 972-392-9595. Go to blessyourheart.com or call Bob, 972-392-9595. All right, thanks, Bob. Go make it happen.
You got it. Take care.
Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. And just like I said in the last segment, whenever I mentioned that I have the Rhino list, I'll have 24 people asking me for the list. Man, in the break, like within 2 minutes of me saying that, 13 people sent me an email. And that is so cool. I can't believe y'all care so much that you want to get ahead of the curve when it comes to primary elections for state representatives. That's amazing. Y'all are a great audience. You make me very happy. But now we got to stop down and play Dead or Alive because I have some tickets and I want to give them away. 2 tickets to Main Street Fest that's happening this weekend in Grapevine. And the headliner is a big one, Neil McCoy. Round of applause for Neil McCoy. Man, I feel like I know personally, but if he walked in the room, he wouldn't remember my name. That was years ago. But how do we do it? We play Dead or Alive. I'm going to give you a list of 10 celebrities or names you should recognize. You have to tell me if they're dead or alive. James, that sounds easy. It is easy. I want to give away these tickets. If you want to play, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. You can still call in. There's a line open here if you want to get in line for the game. But now, let's play. Thank you, Mr. Jovi. Welcome to Dead or Alive on the James Show. Today we're playing for 2 tickets to Main Street Fest, a timeless Texas tradition presented by Bank of the West. It's happening May 16th through 18th in Grapevine, probably on Main Street, I would guess. 3 days of nonstop fun, headlined by the incredible and Texas native Neil McCoy. My first contestant, going to be Brian in Plano. Hey, Brian, you ready for some Dead or Alive action here?
I'm ready.
Okay, well, let's start off with former Rangers manager Ron Washington. Is he dead or alive?
He is alive.
He is alive. Hey, he wasn't manager that long ago. We all know her as Cindy from the Brady Bunch. The actress's name is Susan Olsen. Is she dead or alive?
Alive.
Well done. Ralph Malph from Happy Days. The actor's name is Don Most. Dead or alive?
He's alive.
He is alive. Former Dallas Cowboy Walt Garrison. Dead or alive?
Dead.
All right. You're on a roll here, Brian. Usually I've had to switch to the next caller by now. Don't want to jinx you here. The next lady is Marina Oswald Porter. She was the wife of Lee Harvey Oswald. Is she dead or alive?
Let's go with alive.
Oh, see, I did jinx you. Sorry for ending your streak there, Brian and Plano. We move on to Michael and Justin. Or is it Justin and Michael? I love that joke. You ready for Dead or Alive?
Yes, sir.
All right. Former Rangers pitcher Dennis Oil Can Boyd. Is he dead or alive?
I'm going to say he is alive.
He is alive. I don't know where the oil can came from. I'll ask him next time. George Jefferson. The actor's name is Sherman Hemsley. Is he dead or alive?
I'm going to say dead.
He is dead. His wife in the show, Wheezy Jefferson, that actress's name is Isabel Sanford. Is she dead or alive?
She's alive.
I have her down here as dead. Sorry, Michael. Thank you very much, sir. We move on to Alan in Louisville. Alan, you ready for some Dead or Alive?
I'm ready.
Well, you're in a good spot because there's only 2 left. The lead singer of Blondie, who happens to be blonde, Debbie Harry. Is she dead or alive?
Huge guess. Alive.
She is alive. Man, I saw her at Taste of Addison a few years ago. They were great. And finally, you're not going to know the name. His name's Bob Kruger, but he's the last Democrat senator from Texas. Is he dead or alive?
I'm going to guess dead.
He is dead. You got it. You got it. And if y'all want to know the last time we had a Democrat senator from the great state of Texas, 1993 is when Kay Bailey Hutchinson knocked him off of that special election. So well done, Alan. Louisville, you're going to pop over to Grapevine. That's not a far drive for you this weekend. I'll give you the tickets if you want them.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I'll put you on hold. Garrett will take care of you. And this has been another successful edition of Dead or Alive. All right. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much for playing at home, in your car, wherever you're at. Coming up next, we have another edition of What the Heck Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time? That's coming up on The James Show with me, your host, James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What we have now is one of the newer segments that's just skyrocketing in popularity. It's called What the Heck Did Jasmine Crockett Say This Time?
Jasmine Crockett, queen of the liberal tea.
Peach blonde, bad built butch body, Governor Hot Wheels, and he is a hot ass mess, honey.
Queen of the liberal tea.
All right, that's all fun and stuff. But in this one, there's an interview. She was at a town hall hosted by SiriusXM, and it was hosted by some people who are on the urban stations. Urban is a radio word for, that. So in this one, it's not just the content of what she says. There's a little term that's not of endearment that she uses here that we're going to focus on. I want to see if you can catch it here in this 50-second clip. This was Jasmine Crockett this weekend.
He is disrespectful. Like right now, he still doesn't know how to deal with me.
Sorry, I started at the wrong spot. Back it up.
It is this fear that the people within the party, within the primary system, will have about voting for a woman, because every time we voted for a woman, we've lost so far. And I think that that's a natural fear because we just want to win. So there's a lot of people that are like, you know what? Like, let's go find the safest white boy we can find. I mean, I'm just saying.
Those are the callers that we're hearing. We're hearing people.
No, for real.
A white man's got to do it. We're getting those callers.
For real. And to be clear, when we talk about them, I can tell you that there is one specific candidate. I had a donor on the phones with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate. So I can tell, and I can tell you it's not a black person nor woman. Okay. So like it is, they have, quote unquote, they have chosen. And when I say they, it's the same donors that most likely had their opinions about Joe Biden and move. So like that would be the they that I would talk about.
All right. So I think you noticed the loaded terminology there. Yeah, they're going to get some white boy in there. And look, I'm not really offended by that. But imagine if Trump said that. Well, black boy. But with that sort of condescending tone. Yeah, they're going to get another black boy in there. He'd be in trouble. I'd be in trouble. I might lose my job if I talk like that. Now, the content of what she said is super important too. But let's just talk about the superficial part first. Because if you said that at your job, you would get in trouble. If you said that in an interview at a town hall on SiriusXM, the host might clap back a little bit at you and say, what, can you tap the brakes there on the racial stuff, or what's with the tone? But no, you didn't blink an eye when Jasmine Crockett said it. He didn't blink an eye. No one's playing it. They're not even playing it on Fox News, much less MSNBC or CNN or anything like that. So she says it just it's a whatever. But is that equality? Is that equal treatment? Or if you can say a condescending phrase about another group of people, but they can't return the exact same phrase back at you, doesn't that sound more like a privilege? Huh. Well, if we were a country that was based on structural racism and white supremacy and systemic racism, wouldn't the roles be reversed? Would we have the societal norms laid out like this? No, absolutely not. And I'm not saying we're a black supremacist country, but there's some part of it that's at least anti-white. But get back to what she was actually talking about there. She's on a conference call with some Democrat leaders and some big-time donors, and the donors have already picked out their candidate, which I think is hilarious because you're admitting that the Democrat Party doesn't choose its candidate based on the will of the Democrat voters. Now, we saw this with our own eyes. We were told something different by the Jasmine Crockett's of the world and their media better halves when all the superdelegates put Hillary over Bernie Sanders in 2016, and then they put Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders in 2020. And then it was the same donor. As she even said, it was the same donors that wanted to get rid of Biden. And if they're so racist that they've got to get a white boy in there, why did they just months ago, not even a year ago, kick out a white guy for a woman of color? Maybe they don't want to run a woman of color again, not because the rest of us are misogynist and hateful. Maybe they actually like the candidate they have picked out. But I love how there's not even an inkling of hope that the Democrat voters of America are going to have much of a say-so in who their next candidate is. It sounds like it's already picked out, and Jasmine Crockett just accidentally told us. Thank you. Thanks for letting us know how the sausage is really made on your side of the aisle. God, she's useful. Thank you very much for hanging out with the James Show. I'm going to get out of here and spend about 2 hours emailing people the Rhino list. If you want the Rhino list, let me know, james@wbap.com, or send me a Facebook message or YouTube comment or whatever. I'll get you the Rhino list that myself and Brian Harrison have put together of all the Republicans who are in Austin right now voting with the Democrats to keep your property taxes high and not give you school choice or enact any of these other priorities that you specifically sent them down there to do. Go look at the map, see if you're in one of the districts so you can do something about it so we don't have to do this again in 2 years. Stick around. Mark Levin's coming up next. I'm James Parker. You have been listening to The James Show on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.